So today we're going to go over the answers to your test review. You got your test review last Monday, the 2nd. So go to Monday's folder, the 2nd, and click on your Wiser Me test review. We're going to go over those answers right now. So we're in week 3's folder. We're going to Monday, November 2nd. And you're clicking on your test review for cells. Remember, you also have your FRQ to do today, so that way tomorrow on your test, you already know what you're going to write. But right now, we're just looking at our test review for cells. So go ahead and log in and open up your test review. Again, it was from Monday, November 2nd. All right, so hopefully you're ready. This video was optional. You did not have to watch the video, but it is a great review tool for tomorrow's test. If you need help studying, flashcards are your best friend. If you don't have any flashcards at home, there's websites like Quizlet where you can make your own flashcards to help you study. So we're going to fill in the missing words below. Cells are the building blocks of all living things. We call them the building blocks because they make up all living things. They go from cells to tissues to organs. They even help structure the plants, and they make up the xylem and the phylum in the plants. All living things are made up of cells. Remember, if it's not made up of a cell, it is not alive, just like a virus. A virus is not a cell, and it is not made up of cells, so a virus is not alive. And lastly, all cells come from pre-existing cells. This is the premise of the cell theory. So remember, cells don't just magically appear, magically pop up out of nowhere. They have to come from a cell that's already existing. The cell's going to split apart, and that's how it makes more copies of itself. And it's going to continue that process until the organism dies. We're going to list the levels of organizations from smallest to largest. Again, since the cell's the building block, we're going to start off with the cell. In chemistry next year, you're going to learn that something is smaller than the cell. That's the atom. But an atom is not considered living. So cells make up the tissues. Have you ever scraped your knee, fallen really bad, and you take off like a thin layer of skin, and you see those white little circles, and suddenly they start to bleed? That's your tissue. That's what tissue looks like. If that's never happened to you before, I hope it never does, because it's terrible. It just burns like crazy. Your tissues are going to make up your organs, and your organs are like your eyeballs, your heart, your stomach, your intestines. And then all of your organs are going to make up your organ systems. Organ systems can be your digestive system, nervous system, endocrine system, every one of those systems. Altogether, your systems make up your organism. Your human body is an organism. Your dog is an organism. Your cat is an organism. The grass outside, that is an organism. All right, so now we're going to match some of these concepts. A cell is the basic unit of life. Organisms are all living things. Anything that's alive is considered to be an organism. Oops. Okay. Sorry. So cells are basic units of life. Organism is any living thing. Carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, and phosphorus. These are the elements, the atoms that make up living things. And new cells can only be produced from existing cells. So next we're going to label the virus. This is what we went over yesterday in yesterday's lesson. At the top we have a capsid, which is also called the protein coat. Inside of the protein coat, you have your genetic material. And your genetic material for a virus can be either DNA or RNA. It could be either one of those because sometimes a virus only has RNA, sometimes a virus only has DNA. The DNA is going to go down the sheath. And once it goes down the sheath, it's going to inject itself into the host cell. And finally, a virus has tail fibers that help it move around on top of the cell, the host cell. And in case you forgot, this is a virus, but more importantly, it's a bacteriophage, which means it attacks bacteria only. All right, now let's answer some multiple choice questions about the cell. A cell is the smallest part of a human that is still living. That's the key word, living. Technically, the smallest part of a human is the atom, but atoms aren't alive. Cells can only be produced by pre-existing cells. So remember, a cell can make more cells, but cells cannot just appear out of nowhere. It's not magic. They just can't pop up. And finally, the last one, the leading evolutionary theory, the origin of eukaryotic cells from prokaryotic organisms. Keywords theory. That's the endosymbiotic theory, the only theory we've talked about. Remember, that's when we said large bacteria. Once upon a time, they ate smaller bacteria. And then those bacteria decided to live together and evolve, and that's how we came up with plant cells and animal cells. They came from bacteria cells. So now we have some concepts to place into either plant cell, animal cell, or both. I'm not going to write them all out because that's going to take too much time. So I'm going to circle everything with the plant cell, green. I'm going to circle everything for the animal cell, pink. And then I'm going to circle everything for both plants and animals, blue. All right, so it has a large central vacuole. That's going to be the plant cells. That's where it stores water. If it has a cell wall, that is also a plant cell. The cell wall helps provide structure. It makes the plant sturdy. Remember, plants don't have a skeleton, so they need some sort of structure. Eukaryotic cells, that's both plants and animals. Both plants and animals are eukaryotic. The only ones that are prokaryotic are bacteria. Both also contain mitochondria. Mitochondria gives energy to the cell. Yes, plants do have a mitochondria. It does help with the cellular respiration for the plant. It helps with the conversion of carbon and oxygen. DNA is stored in the nucleus. That is both plants and animals. Both plants and animals have DNA. They have centrioles. That's only going to be the animal cell. The animal cell is the only one with centrioles that help divide the cell. A palm tree is a plant. That's an easy one. I hope everyone got that one right. It says the word plant in it. They lack a cell wall. That's the animal cells. In humans, our cells need to be able to move and bend to get through the rest of the parts of our body, so they can't have a cell wall. Animal cells are the only ones that can't contain lysosomes. Remember, lysosomes help get rid of the waste, all the trash products in our cell. Carries out photosynthesis. That's only plants. Only plants perform photosynthesis. Humans, animals do not. Therefore, animals do not have a chloroplast. Animals also have a small or no vacuoles at all. Plants do have a chloroplast because that's what performs photosynthesis. And since both have a mitochondria, both are going to help carry out cellular respiration. All right, next we're going to match up the organelles to the correct function. Ribosomes are the site of protein synthesis. Ribosomes make protein. P and R and P, they go together. The endoplasmic reticulum, that's like the train, the ER train. It's going to transport molecules around the cell. A vacuole is going to store water and waste. For the plant, it's going to store very large amounts of water. The chloroplast is where photosynthesis occurs. Only plants have chloroplasts. The mitochondria is where cellular respiration occurs. That's also where we get our energy from. The Golgi body is the packaging station. It packages proteins to carry to the rest of the cell and body. And then finally, lysosomes are going to break down old parts of the cell. They're the cleanup crew. They get rid of all the unwanted materials. Next, we're going to identify 3 types of cells. The first one, hopefully, is the easiest one. This is a prokaryote, which is a bacteria. Remember, bacteria don't have a nucleus. That's why the DNA is just floating around on the inside. It's not stored anywhere like the nucleus because it doesn't have one. B is going to be the plant cell, which is a eukaryotic cell. You can tell it's a plant cell because of the structure. It has a defined shape because of the cell wall. And then finally, C is the animal cell. It kind of has a circular shape. It's a eukaryote. For both plant and animal, the DNA is inside of a nucleus. It's not floating around like bacteria. It's stored inside of the ball. Before I start labeling the cell organelles, I'm going to answer these last two questions. Why are viruses considered non-living? Well, they do have DNA, but all living things have DNA. Having a capsid doesn't really matter. But this one, they do not need to consume energy to survive. Every living thing needs to consume energy to survive. And lastly, which structures are found in plant cells but not animals? Both have a mitochondria, both have a nucleus, and both have ribosomes. But only plant cells have a cell wall. Animal cells do not. All right, so now I'm going to label the cell organelles. A is the large vacuole. That's where it's going to store the plant cell's water. B is the cell wall. It's going to provide structure for the plant. C is the endoplasmic reticulum. It's going to transport the proteins. D is the nucleus. That's where we have the DNA. E is the mitochondria. That's where we get the energy from. Respiration processes occur there. F is the chloroplast. That's where we have photosynthesis. And finally, G is the Golgi body. That's where we're going to package the proteins. Keep in mind that plant cells also have cytoplasm. They also have ribosomes. And I think that's everything else they have. All right, A is kind of hard to see. I'm sorry, the next cell is kind of hard to see. That's the animal cell. A is the nucleolus. That's the small part on the inside where the DNA is. Then we have the nucleus that holds the nucleolus. C is the nuclear membrane. That's where we have the holes where RNA can come and go. D is the endoplasmic reticulum. Again, it's going to move the proteins around. E is the Golgi body. It's going to package the proteins. F is the centrioles. That's going to help the cell divide. G is the cytoplasm. That's the jello space where all the organelles are inside. H is the mitochondria. That's where we get our energy. I is the cell membrane. It surrounds the cell. And finally, J, it's pointing to the ribosomes. Again, those are kind of hard to see. I saved them for the end. Hopefully, if you didn't do your test review, you did it right now while I was going over the answers. Make sure you study this, review this, make flashcards. Also, make sure you do your FRQ. Again, all of this can be found in Monday's folder, November 2nd. If you have any questions, stay on. If not, you're free to go.